The farmer's crippled daughter was mocked in public, until the alpha vampire carried her home. The village of Ashmore lay between wide fields and dark forests, a small place where life was hard and hope was quiet. The people worked from sunrise to nightfall, growing grain and raising animals, always careful to follow the old rules. Those rules were not made by kings or councils, but by fear. Above Ashmore stood the realm of the Night Lords, the vampires who ruled the land from black stone castles hidden beyond the hills. They did not come often, but everyone knew they were watching. Taxes were paid in grain and silver. Silence was paid in obedience. Among the villagers lived a farmer named Rowan and his daughter, Elara. Elara had been born healthy, but when she was 7, a cart wheel broke on the old road. She fell, and her leg was badly hurt. The village healer tried her best, but the bone never healed right. Since then, Elara walked with pain and a slow, uneven step. People noticed. Children whispered when she passed. Adults pretended not to see. Some spoke with false kindness, others with sharp laughter. Elara learned early that the world was not gentle to those who could not keep up. Still, she worked. Every morning she helped her father feed the animals. She sorted grain, carried water when she could, and mended clothes by the fire at night. Her hands were steady, her eyes thoughtful. She read old books left behind by travelers, learning stories of ancient kings and forgotten magic. Her body was weak, but her mind was strong. Rowan worried for her. He wished he could protect her from the looks, the words, the quiet cruelty of the village. But he was only a farmer. He had little power in a world ruled by shadows. One autumn day, the harvest market filled the center of Ashmore. Stalls lined the square. Lanterns hung from wooden poles. It was the one day of the year when the village allowed itself joy. Elara did not want to go. Crowds were difficult. Uneven ground hurt her leg, and people noticed her more when she moved slowly. But Rowan smiled and said, "You should see the colors, you should hear the music." So she went. She wore a simple dress, clean but plain. Her hair was tied back neatly. She leaned on her walking stick as she crossed the square, careful with each step. At first she enjoyed the sounds, the laughter, the soft music, the smell of baked bread. For a moment she felt almost normal. Then someone laughed. A young man near the grain stalls whispered something. Another repeated it louder. Soon, eyes turned toward her. "Look at the way she walks," someone said. "She should stay home," another voice replied. Elara lowered her eyes, her face burned. She tried to move away, but the ground was crowded and her leg slipped on loose stone. She stumbled, nearly falling. The laughter grew. No one stepped forward to help. Rowan was on the far side of the square talking to a trader. He did not see her struggle. Elara's chest tightened. She felt small. She felt exposed, as if the whole world had decided she did not belong in it. Then the air changed. The lantern flames flickered. The music stopped. A deep silence spread across the square, heavy and cold. Even the laughter died in throats that suddenly could not speak. A shadow moved at the edge of the market. People turned slowly, fear already rising in their eyes. He stood tall, dressed in dark armor that seemed to drink in the light. His presence was powerful, not loud but commanding. His eyes were pale and sharp, ancient and knowing. Calethorn, Alpha of the Night Lords. The vampire king had not been seen in Ashmore for many years. Everyone dropped to their knees. Rowan froze where he stood, his heart pounding. Fear for his daughter struck him like a blade. Elara did not kneel, not because she was brave, but because she could not move fast enough. Her leg trembled. Her walking stick slipped from her hand. Calethorn's gaze swept across the crowd, over bowed heads, shaking shoulders, held breath. Then his eyes stopped. They rested on Elara. For a long moment the world seemed to hold still. Calethorn felt something pull inside his chest. Not hunger, not anger, something unfamiliar. Something quiet and sharp. He walked toward her. Each step echoed across the stone square. People pressed themselves lower as if the ground might hide them. Elara looked up. She expected fear to take her. She expected her body to freeze. But instead she saw loneliness in his eyes. Not cruelty, not fire, just endless night. Calethorn stopped in front of her. He saw the way she stood, trying to be steady, refusing to fall, refusing to beg. He saw the pain she hid behind calm eyes. He remembered another time. Another mortal, another injustice. Before anyone could speak, he reached down. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Calethorn lifted Alara into his arms. She let out a small sound of surprise, her hands instinctively gripping his cloak. His hold was firm but careful, as if he feared hurting her. The square remained silent. Rowan tried to move, but fear locked his legs. Alara's heart raced. She did not understand what was happening. She had expected shame, not this. She had expected mockery, not protection. Calethorn turned. "Return to your homes," he said, his voice calm and cold. "This gathering is over." No one argued. He walked through the village, carrying Alara as if she weighed nothing at all. Lantern light fell over them, painting the moment into memory. Alara stared at the dark sky above, her mind spinning. Why her? What had she done to deserve the attention of a king of monsters? As they passed the edge of Ashmore, she finally spoke. "Sir, my father, he will not be harmed," Calethorn said. His voice was steady, but something beneath it trembled. Alara fell silent again. The road beyond the village was quiet. The forest loomed ahead, thick and ancient. As Calethorn stepped onto the dark path leading away from everything she had ever known, Alara realized something terrifying and strange. For the first time in her life, the world was not looking away from her. And she did not know whether she had been saved. Their branches arched overhead like black arms, and the wind whispered secrets no mortal could understand. Alara felt the chill of the night settle into her bones, but she did not cry. Her fear was heavy, yet curiosity and disbelief ran even deeper. Calethorn carried her effortlessly. Each step he took was silent, yet filled the world with power. The villagers' eyes had been wide with awe, and now the forest itself seemed to hush in respect. The moonlight touched Calethorn's dark armor, giving him the look of a creature both noble and terrible, yet he held her gently as if she were glass. Alara's mind raced. She tried to imagine what awaited her in his castle. Would it be cold stone and emptiness? Would she be a prisoner kept for reasons she could not guess? She tightened her hands against Calethorn's chest, her heart hammering. "Where are we going?" she finally whispered. Calethorn's pale eyes flicked to her. He did not smile. His voice was low, smooth, like velvet over steel. "To my home," he said simply. Alara swallowed. She did not ask why. Perhaps she already knew the answer. He had chosen her. That thought alone made her stomach twist. The forest thickened. Strange shapes moved in the shadows, too fast to see clearly. Alara shivered. She had grown up near the woods, but these woods were different, older, darker, alive in a way she could not name. Calethorn seemed untouched by it. His steps were steady, confident, certain. She felt small and fragile in his arms, but oddly safe. After what felt like hours, the forest opened into a valley. There, perched atop a black hill, was the fortress. Its towers scraped the clouds, and its walls were as dark as midnight. Windows glowed with a cold, pale light, and the gates were carved with symbols that made Alara's heart beat faster with both fear and fascination. Calethorn did not rush. He carried her to the entrance, where two guards bowed deeply at his presence. The giant doors swung open without a sound. Inside, the fortress was vast, filled with echoes of history and quiet power. Tapestries hung from the walls, depicting scenes of battles and victories, but the threads shimmered like silver in the torchlight. Every step Calethorn took echoed across marble floors. Alara's legs dangled, tired from the journey, yet she refused to cry. She had always been taught to hide her weakness, but inside, her mind was racing with questions she dared not speak aloud. Why had Calethorn chosen her? Why not one of the powerful nobles or even someone from his own kind? She was a fragile girl with a broken leg, nothing special in the eyes of the world. Yet he had picked her. Calethorn led her through a long hallway filled with statues of past vampire lords. Their eyes seemed alive, watching, judging. Alara shivered. She had heard stories about Calethorn, tales of cruelty and absolute power, but seeing him up close made her realize stories could never capture reality. There was a sadness in him, hidden beneath the sharp gaze and the commanding presence, and for some reason, that sadness made her heart ache. Finally, he reached a room at the far end of the hall. The door was carved from black wood, glowing faintly with runes that Alara did not understand. Calethorn set her down carefully on a soft rug near a fireplace. The room was warm and quiet. Light from the fire flickered across his face, casting shadows that made him look even more ancient. "You will rest here," Calethorn said. His voice was gentle, though his expression remained stern. "You are safe." Alara nodded, unsure what else to say. She wanted to ask questions, but her mind felt empty. The room smelled of old wood and herbs. It was different from any house she had known. It was lonely, yet not cold. "You will eat," Calethorn continued, "and then you will sleep. Tomorrow we will speak." Alara lowered her head. I am not used to being cared for," she whispered. Her voice shook slightly. "People usually just ignore me or worse." Calethorn studied her for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Perhaps that is because they do not see what is truly important." Alara blinked. She did not understand, but somehow the words gave her a strange comfort. The night stretched on, and Alara fell into a restless sleep. Her dreams were vivid, filled with shadowy forests and silver eyes watching her from the dark. She saw faces she had never met, yet somehow remembered. And always, Calethorn was there, silent, standing in the shadows, waiting. Morning came with a pale light filtering through the high windows. Alara woke to find Calethorn standing nearby, watching her. He did not speak at first. Instead, he studied her as though trying to understand something hidden deep within her soul. "Come," he said finally, "you must learn the rules of this place." Alara followed, leaning heavily on her stick. Calethorn walked beside her, not holding her this time, but close enough that she felt his presence like a shield. The fortress was larger than she could have imagined. Corridors twisted like the roots of ancient trees. Stairs led to towers and balconies overlooking valleys of dark forests. Every corner had its own secrets. As they walked, Calethorn explained the basic rules. Respect the rooms. Do not touch objects unless invited. Speak only when spoken to in certain halls. But most importantly, he said, the vampires respect strength, courage, and honesty above all else. They fear weakness that hides behind lies. Alara listened carefully. She did not speak much. It was difficult to know what to say to someone like him. Words seemed small, fragile, meaningless. Yet every rule he spoke carried weight, and she realized she had entered a world where every step mattered. After breakfast, Calethorn led her to a small library. Rows of ancient books lined the walls. Dust covered the corners, yet the air smelled alive with knowledge. "You will study here," he said. "The world outside may not understand you, but here your mind can grow free." Alara's eyes widened. She had read books before, but these were older, filled with stories of magic, kingdoms, and legends of creatures beyond imagination. Her fingers trembled as she opened one. Words seemed to dance on the pages, and for the first time in her life she felt excitement mixed with fear. Days passed. Alara learned quickly. Calethorn watched her progress silently, occasionally offering guidance. Sometimes he would correct her gently, other times he simply nodded, letting her discover the answers herself. Slowly, Alara began to notice things about Calethorn. He moved like a shadow, quiet and precise. His face was calm, but his eyes held centuries of sorrow. He seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, yet he never complained. And he noticed her. Not just her limp, not just her face, not just her silence. He noticed her mind, her courage, her quiet determination. It made him uneasy in a way he had not felt for centuries. One evening, Alara was reading by the fire when Calethorn entered. She looked up, startled. "You read too much at once," he said softly, though his words sounded like a command. Alara smiled faintly. "I want to understand this place," she said. "I want to know why you brought me here." Calethorn's eyes darkened. "I brought you here because the world ignored you, because I have long ignored the world myself. Perhaps together we can learn something different." Alara tilted her head. She did not fully understand, but the thought made her heart flutter with curiosity and fear. Days turned into weeks. Alara's confidence grew. She walked with less pain, not because her leg had healed, but because her mind had grown stronger. Calethorn allowed her small freedoms, walks along the balcony, visits to the gardens, study in the libraries. Each step, each small freedom made her feel alive in a way she never had before. Yet she also noticed the whispers among the vampires. Some watched her with suspicion. Some avoided her gaze entirely, and some lingered too long. Calethorn did not explain. He merely said, "Not all will understand your presence here. That is not your concern. Only your choices matter." One night as she stared out from the balcony at the moonlit forests, a sudden sound made her turn. A shadow moved near the tower gates, a lone vampire watching her. Fear prickled at her skin. Calethorn appeared beside her, silent as always. She jumped slightly. "They are curious," he said. "Some are threatened, some are intrigued. Do not be afraid, you are under my protection." Alara's chest tightened. She had never known someone could watch her, care for her, and make her feel safe all at once. Yet a small, uneasy thought crept into her mind. If danger ever came, could even he protect her? Before she could ask, Calethorn turned his gaze to the horizon. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried a weight she could feel in her bones. "Soon," he said quietly, "you will understand why the world cannot simply ignore you anymore. But the choice will be yours, not mine." Alara looked down at her hands. Her mind raced with questions and fears. She did not yet know what lay ahead, what trials awaited her. She only knew one thing: her life had changed, and nothing could ever return to the way it had been. The night wind carried a distant cry. Alara's pulse quickened. She looked up at Calethorn. His eyes were pale in the moonlight, sharp as ever but unreadable. "Are we safe?" she asked softly. Calethorn's lips pressed into a thin line. "For now. But the night is long, and not all who watch sleep peacefully." Alara shivered. The fortress no longer felt safe. But even fear had a strange beauty. She had survived the village's cruelty. She had survived the journey through the forest. Perhaps she could survive anything. Yet as the wind whispered through the towers, a small, dark thought planted itself in her mind. Someone or something was coming, and it would not wait for her to be ready. Cliffhanger. And tonight their patience would end. The fortress was quiet, but the silence did not feel safe. Alara had grown accustomed to the dark halls and shadowed corners, yet something about this night made her uneasy. The torches flickered as if warning her. The wind outside carried strange whispers, and the shadows along the walls seemed to twist and watch her. She walked slowly through the corridors, leaning on her stick. Calethorn was nearby, always silent, always watching. His presence was both comforting and frightening, like a shield made of shadows. She felt her heart race, yet she did not speak. She had learned that in this place, words could weigh more than stones. Calethorn's voice broke the silence. "You have changed since you arrived." Alara looked up at him. His eyes were pale, almost like silver in the torchlight, and they studied her with something she could not name: pride, concern, or something deeper, something that made her chest tighten. "I try," she said softly. "I do not want to be weak." "You are not weak," he said. "Weakness is pretending to be something you are not. You are stronger than most mortals I have known." Alara lowered her head. It was the first time someone had ever said that to her without a hint of pity. Her heart fluttered, unsure how to respond. She wanted to believe him, yet the thought of trusting someone so powerful frightened her. They reached the library and Calethorn gestured for her to sit. "You will study tonight," he said. "Knowledge is power, and in this world power can protect you." Alara nodded. She had grown to love the quiet of the library. The ancient books were heavy with history, magic, and legends. She ran her fingers over the spines, feeling the weight of centuries. Her leg no longer pained her as much when she was absorbed in the stories. Calethorn lingered at the door. He did not enter. He simply watched her. The way he looked at her was different from the first day he carried her through the village. It was softer, more careful, yet still held the authority of a ruler. Alara felt a strange warmth in her chest, though she could not name it. Hours passed, and the fortress grew colder as the night deepened. The wind howled outside, rattling windows and sending shadows dancing across the walls. Alara looked up from her book and noticed movement in the darkness beyond the tall shelves. "Calethorn," she whispered. He appeared silently at her side. His face was calm, but his eyes were alert. "You are not alone," he said. Alara swallowed. "Who is it?" "Vampires," he replied. "They watch always. Some are curious, some are cautious. Not all welcome your presence." She shivered. "Why do they care about me?" Calethorn's expression darkened. "Because you are different. You do not fear as others do. You have strength they cannot measure with their eyes. That frightens some and intrigues others, but it is not their concern. Only yours matters." Alara nodded, though her hands shook slightly. She felt exposed, small in a world filled with shadows. Yet there was something in Calethorn's voice, a promise she could not ignore. Later, as she walked along the balcony under the moonlight, Calethorn joined her. The fortress stretched around them like a city of stone, silent and ancient. The wind carried the scent of forests and rivers far below. "You should not walk alone at night," he said softly. "I am careful," she replied. "And besides, you are here." Calethorn's gaze swept over the horizon. "Being here does not protect you from everything. The night is older than even I am. It has many eyes and many hands. Some will come and some will wait." Alara's heart beat faster. She had already sensed it, the quiet tension that filled the fortress, the feeling that something was moving just out of sight. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "Why did you bring me here? I am only a mortal." Calethorn's eyes darkened. He did not answer immediately. He looked at the distant hills, his jaw tight. "Because you were ignored," he said finally. "And because I have ignored much in my life. Perhaps we are alike in ways you do not understand." Alara felt a strange connection in his words, though she did not know why. She wanted to ask more, but the wind howled and the shadows seemed to move closer. Before she could speak, a loud crash echoed through the halls. Alara froze, her heart leaping. Calethorn's posture shifted, his senses sharpened. "Stay here," he commanded. Alara wanted to argue, but his eyes were sharp, unyielding. She nodded. He disappeared into the darkness, moving like a shadow himself. Minutes passed. Alara tried to remain calm, but the sound of distant footsteps and low voices filled her ears. She could not see who or what it was. Her mind raced with fear and questions. Then a hand touched her shoulder. She spun around, but it was only Calethorn. His eyes were pale and focused, his expression tense. "They are here," he said. "Some seek to test you to see if you belong. You do, but you must be ready. Strength is not always measured by the body." Alara's hands trembled. I can't fight like you." "You do not have to," he said. "You have something far stronger. Courage, intelligence, will. Use them. Trust yourself. Trust me." The voices grew louder, echoing through the halls. Figures appeared in the shadows, vampires from distant lands, eyes glowing faintly. They surrounded the balcony, their expressions unreadable. Alara took a deep breath. She looked at Calethorn. He nodded slightly. That was all the permission she needed. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and faced them. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I am here because I choose to be. I am not weak, and I will not run." The vampires froze. Some whispered to one another. Others tilted their heads, intrigued. One stepped forward, a tall vampire with eyes like fire. "And who are you, mortal, to stand before us?" he asked. Ilara swallowed. "I am Ilara," she said. "I am the daughter of a farmer. I am not the strongest and I am not perfect, but I am not afraid of the truth. I do not hide from what I am." Calethorn's presence beside her seemed to grow larger, more powerful. The other vampires sensed it too. He did not move, did not speak. Yet his authority filled the space, quieting even the most daring. The tall vampire's eyes flicked to Calethorn, then back to Ilara. "Interesting," he muttered. "Perhaps you are not entirely ordinary." Ilara's chest tightened. She did not fully understand what she had done, but she felt a surge of pride. For the first time, she had faced creatures far older and stronger than herself, and had not faltered. Calethorn placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You see," he said softly, "strength is more than muscle or magic. It is in the heart, the mind, the will. Remember that." The other vampires slowly withdrew, melting back into the shadows. The balcony was silent again. Ilara's heart was racing, her hands cold, yet she felt alive. Calethorn studied her. "You have done well," he said quietly. "But this is only the beginning. The world you have entered is full of tests, full of choices. You will face challenges far greater than tonight." Ilara looked out over the dark forests. The wind carried a strange, almost musical sound, a cry that made her shiver. She realized that Calethorn had brought her into a world she had never imagined, where danger and wonder walked side by side. "Why me?" she asked again, softly. Calethorn's gaze softened, though only slightly. "Because you remind me that there is still something worth protecting, something worth trusting, something I thought I had lost long ago." Ilara's heart fluttered at his words, though she did not fully understand them. She had never thought of herself as someone worth protecting, and yet in this strange, shadowed world she felt seen. That night she could not sleep. She lay on the soft rug in her room, listening to the wind and the distant cries. Her mind raced with thoughts of the fortress, of Calethorn, of the strange power that seemed to connect them. And then she heard it, a soft whisper, almost like a voice carried on the wind. She sat up, straining to hear. It was faint, but it called her name, Ilara. Her heart leaped. She looked toward the window. Shadows moved along the walls. She could feel eyes watching her, waiting, patient and hungry. Calethorn appeared behind her. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "They are coming," he said. "Not all are friendly. Some are curious. Some seek more than knowledge. You must be ready." Ilara nodded. She did not know how she would face whatever came next, but for the first time she did not feel small or powerless. She had survived the village. She had survived the forest. And now she would survive the night. Yet deep in the fortress, beyond firelight and shadow, a dark presence stirred. It had waited centuries for someone like her, and now, at last, the time had come. The air grew colder. The wind carried a low, almost musical growl. Ilara felt it in her bones. Something ancient had awakened, and it was coming for her. Calethorn's eyes narrowed. "They will test you. You must not fail, not now, not ever." Ilara swallowed, gripping her stick tightly. She looked at him, then out into the darkness. Fear rushed through her, but it was mixed with determination. Whatever was coming, she would face it, and Calethorn would not leave her side. Cliffhanger. It stepped closer, and Ilara realized with a jolt that it knew her name. And it had come not just to watch, but to take. The fortress had never felt so alive, or so dangerous. Shadows moved along the walls, whispering and twisting, and the wind carried voices that were older than any human memory. Ilara stood on the balcony, gripping her walking stick, her heart racing. She had faced fear before, but tonight felt different. Tonight something ancient had awakened, and it had found her. Calethorn appeared silently at her side as always. His presence was steady, like a mountain in a storm, and it calmed her in ways words could not. Yet his pale eyes were sharp, alert, scanning the darkness with a vigilance that made her pulse quicken. "They are here," he said quietly. "Not all will be peaceful. Some will seek to test your strength. Others may seek more. Alara nodded. She had trained for this in a way. Not with swords or magic, but with courage, patience, and understanding. Her mind had grown sharper, her heart steadier, since arriving in the fortress. But she could not deny the fear curling in her chest. A soft rustling came from below. Figures moved in the shadowed hallways, their forms faint in the torchlight. Alara could see glimpses of them, vampires, some known to Calethorn, others unknown, their eyes glowing faintly. One figure was taller, more commanding, stepping forward as if the darkness itself obeyed it. Alara's breath caught. The air seemed to grow heavier. She felt the weight of centuries pressing down, the same weight Calethorn carried every day. Calethorn placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Trust yourself," he said, "and trust me." Alara nodded. She straightened her back, lifting her chin. "I am ready," she said, her voice firmer than she had expected. The tall figure moved closer. Its eyes, glowing like embers, focused entirely on her. The room seemed to shrink around them. The other vampires waited, silent and tense. "You are mortal," the figure said, its voice deep and smooth. "Yet you have walked through shadows that would break even the strongest of us. Why should you be here?" Alara swallowed. Fear twisted in her stomach, but she refused to show it. "Because I have a choice," she said. "Because I do not hide from what I am. Because I will not be afraid to stand for myself, even in a place filled with power greater than mine." Calethorn's gaze softened slightly. There was pride there, quiet but strong, and Alara felt it like a warmth in her chest. The tall figure tilted its head as if considering her words. Slowly, a smile flickered across its face. "Perhaps you are stronger than you seem." The tension in the room did not ease, but Alara felt a small spark of hope. Calethorn stepped forward, standing beside her. His hand brushed hers lightly, not in dominance, but as a reminder that she was not alone. "You see," he said quietly, "strength is not always in the body. It is in courage, in will, in the choices we make when the world is against us." The figure's eyes narrowed slightly. "Interesting," it murmured. "Perhaps this is why the Alpha brought you here, to test what is beyond mere strength, to see the heart that survives fear." Alara's heart beat faster. She realized something then. She had survived more than she ever imagined. She had faced the cruelty of the village, the fear of the forest, the unknown power of the fortress. And now she had survived the test of shadows. But the night was not finished. A sudden movement in the halls sent a chill down her spine. More vampires emerged, some from corners she had not noticed, their eyes glowing and expressions unreadable. Alara could feel their curiosity, their suspicion, their hunger for understanding. Calethorn's hand tightened slightly on her shoulder. "Do not falter," he said. "Not now." "Not ever," Alara nodded. She did not need to run. She did not need to hide. She had learned that her courage mattered more than any strength her body lacked. The tall figure stepped closer to Calethorn. "You have brought a mortal into the fortress," it said, its voice low and measured. "Do you truly trust her?" Calethorn did not answer immediately. He studied Alara, his pale eyes softening. "I trust her because she has chosen her own path," he said finally. "Not because of what she can do, but because of who she is." Alara's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken of her in that way, not for who she truly was, but for her courage, her spirit. She felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them away. This was a moment to stand tall, not to falter. The tall figure seemed to study her for a long time, as if searching for some hidden flaw. Finally, it nodded. "Perhaps she is worthy," it said. "Perhaps she is different." The other vampires slowly withdrew, retreating into the shadows. The hall grew quiet again, except for the wind whispering through the towers. Alara took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly, but her heart full of a strange, new strength. Calethorn's hand remained on her shoulder. "You have done well," he said softly, "but the night is long and more challenges await. You must always remember, your courage matters more than anything else." Alara looked at him, her eyes wide. I want to understand," she whispered. I want to understand this world and why you chose me." Calethorn's gaze softened. He looked at her as if weighing centuries of thought, as if choosing words carefully. "Because in you I see hope, hope I thought had been lost long ago. You remind me that there is still something worth protecting, something worth trusting, something worth loving." Alara's heart skipped a beat. Love. The word seemed impossible, yet in the fortress, in the shadows, with Calethorn beside her, it felt real. The wind shifted, carrying a distant cry. Alara shivered, but she did not feel weak. She had survived the village, the forest, and the test of the shadows. She had survived the fortress. She could survive what came next, and Calethorn would be there. Days passed, and life in the fortress settled into a rhythm. Alara studied, walked the halls, and learned more about the world she had entered. She and Calethorn spoke often, quietly, sharing knowledge, stories, and small moments of understanding. She learned of the ancient curse that bound Calethorn, how he could rule with absolute power but could not love, could not trust, could not allow himself to hope. And she realized that her presence, her courage, her spirit was breaking that curse slowly, gently, in ways neither of them fully understood. One evening, Calethorn led her to the highest tower, where the view stretched across forests, rivers, and mountains far below. The moon hung low, silver and bright, reflecting in his pale eyes. "Alara," he said quietly, "you have changed this place. Not with power, not with strength, but with something far more difficult: patience, courage, and truth. You remind even me of what it means to feel, to care." Alara's voice trembled slightly. "I never thought anyone could see me, not really. I have always been small, weak, invisible." Calethorn shook his head. "You were never invisible. You were only unnoticed. I see you now. And that is why you matter, more than you know." For a moment they stood in silence, watching the forests below. The wind carried a soft song, like a memory of a world long forgotten. Alara felt warmth in her chest, a feeling she could not name. Suddenly the shadows along the balcony shifted. Figures emerged, but this time they did not attack. They bowed their heads in respect. The fortress seemed to recognize her courage, her will, her heart. Alara turned to Calethorn. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "but beauty comes with challenges. The world will test you always. You must be ready always." Alara nodded. She understood now that life, even in this strange, shadowed place, was not about avoiding danger or fear. It was about facing it. And she would face it, not alone, but with Calethorn beside her. Weeks passed. The bond between them deepened, quiet and strong. Calethorn taught her about the history of the Night Lords, the ancient magic, and the importance of courage and honor. Alara shared her thoughts, her ideas, her questions. They learned from one another, growing together in ways neither had imagined. And then, one morning, as the first light of dawn touched the fortress, Calethorn spoke words that made her heart skip. "Alara," he said softly, "the curse that binds me, it is ending. Not because of power, not because of magic, but because of you. Your courage, your heart, they are breaking it. I am changing, and you are the reason." Alara felt a wave of emotion she could barely name. Pride, joy, fear, and hope collided in her chest. She reached out, her hand brushing his. "Calethorn," she whispered. He turned to her, eyes soft, pale, yet filled with something powerful. "Yes," he said, "you have shown me that even in darkness light can exist. That even in centuries of shadow there is hope. You have saved me as much as I have protected you." Alara's heart leapt. She realized then that love was not just a feeling of warmth. It was courage, trust, and understanding. And in this fortress of shadows she had found it. The fortress seemed to breathe around them, quiet and alive. The shadows no longer felt threatening. The wind carried a gentle song like a promise. Alara looked at Calethorn. "Whatever comes next," she said, "we face it together." He nodded. "Together," he agreed. The sun rose over the forests and mountains, painting the world in gold and silver. The village of Ashmore lay far below, unaware of the courage and change that had grown in the fortress above. But Alara did not fear the world outside anymore. She had faced cruelty, fear, and darkness. She had faced centuries of shadow, and she had emerged strong, brave, and seen. Calethorn placed his hand over hers, and for the first time in centuries he smiled. Not a ruler, not an alpha, not a shadow, but a being capable of hope, trust, and love. Together they stepped onto the balcony, facing the rising sun, ready for the world that awaited. The fortress, once a place of fear, had become a home. The shadows, once threatening, had become witnesses to courage and truth. And in that light, Alara and Calethorn found not only safety, but a bond that could withstand centuries. And so, the mortal and the vampire stood side by side, the dawn painting their world with promise. The trials of the night were over, but the story of courage, trust, and love had only just begun.